What if I told you that your ability to decide your own path and not outsource it to experts is the actual lever that you need for true freedom? Not distrust, just radical responsibility, radical control. This is a conversation that I've been having often, whether it's with family members or friends or training, even my chiropractor and clients. It has been an ongoing theme lately. And so today I want to discuss the framework that I've learned over the last couple decades that helps me weigh advice from professionals, whether it's doctors, bankers, teachers, contractors, and help me choose what fits my ultimate goals without handing out the control to someone else. Hey, if you're new here, my name's Kristen. I'm an authorized infinite banking practitioner, and I help Canadian families and business owners find peace in their financial life and live the abundant lives that they were meant to live by taking back control over their finances and redirecting more money back in their pockets. So I need to preface this video by explaining that I am a classic oldest child. I was the oldest of 5 kids, the oldest of all of the grandkids on both sides of the family, and a classic type A perfectionist, kind of control freak, if you will. I was the obnoxious cousin that organized all of the choreographed dance shows for our parents, and I despised group projects because I didn't trust that anyone else could do it or do it right, or do it my way, which I also thought was right. So that carried over into adulthood, and I got married, had kids, through my job and homeschooling. I poured myself into everything that I did, and I gave everything that I did 110%. I thought this was a flex for a really long time, until I found myself burnt out on every end, and I was sick with worry about things that, to be honest, I had no business even thinking that I could control. I thought I was failing if I didn't do everything myself, and I had to learn the hard way that no one can do everything at 100% effort 100% of the time. I had to learn to let my ego go. I learned that control equals responsibility, but it doesn't mean that I have to do everything myself. So let me give you an example. My husband and I have always lived in old homes. Our last house was an old home. Our new house that we love, we've been here for about 10 years, and we absolutely adore it. We love old homes. We love restoring them. We love seeing them as a blank canvas. We used to binge watch seasons of This Old House, if you've ever seen that show, and the home makeover shows. We just loved it. But we learned the hard way that there's a reason that the homeowners on This Old House hire contractors. If you've never been in an old house, maybe you've never experienced this, but old houses are really wonky. Really wonky. Nothing is square. The walls, nothing is flush. Everything is slightly off keel. When you go to fix a faucet, it turns a 5-minute job into a full bathroom reno that takes you months to do because every little tiny job leads into something bigger. Every pipe leads into a bigger problem because everything is just so old and so woven together. So it took us a really long time to learn that as much as we enjoy restoring our house, hiring a professional was the way to go for a lot of things. It saved us weeks, not months, and tons of time and the mess. Yes, the cost is higher, but not as much as we expected. So we learned this when we hired a contractor to put our basement back together after we had flooded right up to the ceiling, everything that my husband had spent 6 months putting his perfect dream rec room in the basement. He had hockey jerseys all over the walls. It was made up just like basically a hockey arena. He had jerseys all over the walls from all of the teams in the NHL. The floor was painted to resemble a hockey arena. It was just this amazing, perfect, beautiful project. But it took him a long time to complete. And it was his baby, and it was great. The flood wiped that out. And so when we had to rebuild it, we had a contractor come in. We knew we weren't going to rebuild to the same scale that he had done previously. And we had a contractor come in. We gave him the instructions of what we wanted, and he just did it. So at first, we were really annoyed because his team would be here for just a couple hours. They might get here 11 o'clock in the morning, and they were gone by 2. And we were kind of annoyed because we were paying a lot of money for this project until we would go down and look at the progress. And the progress that they made in that one afternoon was more than we could have done ourselves in a week if we were working a week straight, just the two of us. The more progress happened, the more we realized that we weren't paying them by the hour. We were paying them for their expertise. They were much faster at this job because that's all they do. Most importantly, not only did it save us time, but it saved our peace. The mess was contained. The work was done much faster, obviously, than it could have been when we had done it ourselves. And we didn't have to stay up half the night to keep the project rolling. What surprised me most was that the cost wasn't even as much of a difference as we thought it would be. The contractor got most of his supplies at cost, and he used a lot of local suppliers that, to be honest, were much better quality than we could get at the big box stores, and we weren't even aware that these other companies existed. We had better quality, a comparable cost to doing it ourselves, and it saved us not just the time completing the project, but dozens of trips back and forth to the hardware store and weeks of living in disarray. And we had the mental piece of not needing to figure out what happens every time we were trying to frame or drywall around a wonky corner, something that wasn't a complete, perfect angle. My only regret at the end of this was telling them that we would do the painting at the end. I wish we had handed the full project over to them, start to finish, and we could have walked in much, much sooner at the end. So it was still our design. We chose the fixtures, we chose the flooring, the trim, the design elements, but we handed off the parts that we knew that we couldn't do as well or as efficiently as a professional. It worked because we knew just enough about what goes into the project to know exactly what we wanted. We had the underlying context so that when a surprise came up and the contractor was asking questions about how he should frame around this joint or this wall, he would give his advice and we could give him an informed answer, and we were confident in our decisions because we understood how drywall works, how the insulation would work, what type of insulation we should use. We had already done our research on that. Since then, we're not afraid to hire out that type of work because we learned that we value peace and time freedom more than we value the pride of doing it ourselves. So here's where most people get it wrong. They want control, or better yet, they want a specific outcome, but they want to hand off all of the decision-making in that process to someone else. Radical control starts with asking yourself better questions. What are the outcomes that you want? What are the risks? What options best align with your goals, your values, your family's needs, and your long-term plan? You want to think beyond just what's in front of you. You want to think about the things that we hadn't considered, like the time and the peace and the not knowing how to do things and not having to relearn or learn how to do things around wonky corners. The problem is, how do we know which professionals to trust? Because even in regulated industries, let's face it, the news is full every day of fraudsters and scam artists. Radical control comes back to you not having to know everything, but you do need to do enough research and know enough to take ownership of the decision. So step one is that you want to gather options from credible sources who align with your goals and your needs. That's the hardest part, guys. You have to do your own research before you can start even looking for a professional. You want to look into how they conduct themselves, what kind of reviews they have. Do you know people that have worked with them? Step two is you want to weigh the trade-offs. What's the true cost of every decision that you could make here? Not just the money. You want to look at the time, the quality, and the risk. So, for example, when we were looking for a contractor, we went with someone that we had previously worked with on a smaller project. We knew that he showed up when he said he would. We knew that when we gave him a deposit, that he wasn't going to run away with it. We knew that when he was having his crews come into our house, that we could trust who was coming into our home. We had done that research so that when we made the decision to hire him again, we were confident in that decision. Step three is to decide with confidence, then you own the outcome. If it goes well, you celebrate. If not, then you adjust. But you never surrender the control to one single voice. We would not have given him full rein and said, we just want you to drywall our basement, please finish it. that wouldn't have given us the outcome that we were looking for. We knew that when he was done, we were going to install a bar and we were going to install a TV over here. And so we knew going into that, we knew that we could tell him we're going to have a TV on this wall. That's our plan. And he was able to put the electrical in that needed where it needed to go. Same with the bar. He was able to rough in the plumbing and he was able to advise us on products that we did end up using for the sink or whatever. Bottom line is that we didn't just hand over that control because he didn't have the context. That's not saying he's not a great contractor. He didn't know what we were thinking or what our plans are. He wasn't a mind reader. So us taking radical control and radical responsibility over that means that we were the ones responsible for communicating to him exactly what we were looking for. And if he did something that was not in line with that, we had to go back. We couldn't blame him. We had to go back and look at our communication with him and realize that, oh, we actually didn't tell him that we changed our mind and the sink was going to be moved over here. That's on us. That wasn't on him. I'm old enough to remember back when we were always taught that if you were given a diagnosis from a doctor, for example, you should get a second opinion, maybe even a third opinion. Now, I don't want to get into the state of the Canadian healthcare system or why that standard of care has changed, but let's just think about that for a second. Why don't we think about that in that way of getting a second opinion in every area of our life? Why are we, when we go to a bank and we ask for a financial advisor, we're just blindly taking the advice of that one person without even looking into what their credentials are? What does their portfolio look like? What are they doing? What products do they sell? What products don't they sell? What don't they understand? In the same way that every doctor has their specialty, you wouldn't go, you go to your family doctor, but you wouldn't go to them to perform brain surgery. That's why they send you to a specialist, because that brain surgeon has a very specialized expertise in knowing everything about the brain and they understand how it works. Every specialist has their own area that they treat, but they rarely work together to treat the body holistically. In the same way that we had different crews that contractor brought in to work in the basement. We did not have the same framers. They were not the same people that did the drywall. The drywall people did not install the trim. The trim people did not install the electrical. He had specialists for each of those jobs because everyone did a very, very good job on their niche. They weren't expected to know things outside of that, and they were very good and very efficient. Yes, we must rely on professionals, but we shouldn't do it blindly. We want to have a high level of understanding of what we want and how to get there. We don't need to know the intricacies of exactly what's going on inside of a specific thing in order to have a high level understanding. Bringing it back to finances, there's no shortage of one-size-fits-all solutions. Insurance products, debt strategies, investment gimmicks. Radical responsibility means doing your research and understanding what the real value is that you're seeking. It's often not the money that you're seeking. You're seeking the feeling of peace, financial certainty, and the life that you want to live today and down the road. Most people that I speak with are just looking for that feeling of peace. So you need to start asking yourself questions when you're presented with all these different options. What if a strategy promises guarantees, but then it limits your flexibility? Or it promises a high return, but there's also a high amount of risk? How does it fit your tax situation? How does it fit your cash flow or your risk tolerance? Or what if your plans change somewhere down the line? Does this interrupt your goals? And how does it line up with your desire for things like generational wealth and stewardship of your wealth? How does it pan out long term? As an infinite banking practitioner, I help families reclaim control over their cash flow while evaluating opportunities through the lens of their goals, tax efficiencies, liquidity, and guarantees. To be clear, I'm a licensed insurance broker. I would never call myself a financial advisor or pretend to be an expert on all things finances. If you're looking for someone to help you choose stocks, I am not your person. I'm always going to suggest that you seek outside tax and legal help. You want to be working with your own lawyer, your own accountant. My wheelhouse is in infinite banking. I live it. I breathe it. It's the center of everything that I do. I practice it in my own life. And I help families and businesses use the concept to control their cash flow. And we use that to weigh opportunities. We do this together. I'm not looking to take over a decision-making process for you. I am going to educate you. I'm going to empower you to make those decisions. And I am happy to help you hash out which ones make sense, which ones don't. I have a lot of financial tools at my fingertips that I can use to plug things into specialized calculators and figure out what different plans will work for you long term. And we can evaluate what the risk is, what the reward is. Maybe something makes sense short term that does not make sense long term. Because infinite banking is not an all-encompassing solution. And while I know many people who run all of their cash through their IBC systems, I don't recommend that to my clients. Why? Because I want to look at your life as a whole, as a holistic. Your finances are just a small part of your life, and I need them to fit into everything that you do as a whole. So when we work together, I take my time getting to know your goals, and we work together to come up with a comprehensive plan that's going to help you achieve them. I encourage you to keep learning about the infinite banking concept, and I'm definitely not going to make decisions for you. Once your system's in place, we still meet regularly to keep you on track and to adjust the plans as we need to. Whether you're looking for more control in your health, your wealth, or just old house repairs, remember that you don't have to do it alone. Radical control is not distrust. It's owning the decisions that are shaping your life. You're not surrendering your sovereignty, you're stewarding it. Thanks so much for joining. If you found this episode helpful, please give it a like and hit subscribe. When you're ready to take the next step, click the link in the description to access my free resources, then book a call to start. Your future self will thank you. Until next time, live free.